What's up? What's up, CEMC? It's good to have you guys here. Thanks for being here early, on time. That's extra impressive, especially considering everyone that I've talked to has mentioned a very late night last night. So that is the industry. You guys are tenured veterans. So without further ado, this is panel one, Finding Flow in the Studio, the first panel of the first CEMC, kicking off what will hopefully be many years of amazing music education, connection, and dancing. So up here, I have two Chicago legends. We have Orville Kline, Mr. Ableton himself, and Michelle, otherwise known as Blue Nine, a staple with countless releases to her name. And I want to give you guys a chance to introduce yourself, share anything else that people would want to know about you.
What's up? Thanks again for having me, and thanks to all the event organizers for putting this together. It's really great to see events like this happening. This is springtime and a lot of workshops that everyone's getting ready for the summer. It's not so nice that everyone's partying, but it's a good time to buckle down and get some stuff together. My name is Orville Kline. I'm an Ableton certified trainer by day. By night, I'm also a DJ, guitarist, live PA, performer, and I do a bunch of stuff with music.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. I'm Michelle. You guys know me as Blue Nine, house and techno DJ out of here in Chicago, born and raised. What people really don't know about me during the day, I actually I'm a behavioral therapist, for children, which is surprising for some people. And I use a lot of art and music with those guys, but then DJ by night and producer, so not much to me.
I would say that's a whole lot. But. All right, so I wanted to start the conversation where we start our new tracks as producers at the blank canvas. A lot of students talk about how that is like one of the scariest moments when you hit new project in Ableton or FL or whatever you use, and you just stare at those empty lines on the screen with infinite possibilities in front of you. So, Orville, we'll start with you. How do you go about starting a brand new idea when you sit down to create something?
Yeah, I always start with I never use templates for any of my, I always like to start with the blank canvas 99% of the time. My methodology or my philosophy on starting is start with whatever your initial source of inspiration is. It could be an idea like, oh, I have an idea for a melody or a vocal or a concept, and then start there. Now, in situations where you don't have the inspiration yet, I always say start with some easy stuff first. So if you know that you want to make a house track, you know you're going to need a kick drum and some percussion and some bass. Get a groove going and kind of. So I'll just start like building some, I guess, foundational pieces, and then see where the creativity kind of takes you from there. I start the easy stuff if I don't have the idea first.
Yeah, that's smart, because then it's not completely empty anymore. You know, you got a little bit of a structure.
What's going on?
Special guest.
Sorry I'm late.
Hey, it's all good.
I literally just got out of the hospital and came straight here. So.
Hey, that is the best
Here I am.
excuse you could think of saying. So. Really quick, Carmen, if you don't mind introducing yourself to the audience that made it out here just to hear what you have to say.
My name's Carmen Florentino. For 20 years, I've been DJing as Twitch and Scratch. Now I'm going as I Am Me. Been, like I said, DJing 20 plus years, producing about 10 or 15.
Fantastic. So glad you could make it, man. All right, so we're starting the question with, how do you start a brand new idea when you're staring at the blank canvas of a new project? Orville just shared some wisdom with us. Michelle, do you want to go next?
Sure. It depends. I'm very much, if I don't get it within that block, I trash it. That's if I don't sit down with a track and it's there within like a couple hours, I will trash the track, because that means that I'm overthinking. If I will make a track and then I'll sit on it for like an ear break, if it's completed, that's fine. But if it's something that I'm stuck on, I'll completely trash it. I do save some of my things where I'm like, ooh, I like the way I made my kick drum here, or I like kind of how I did my bass line here. I'll keep those, but I do have in my head where I use a lot of markers where I know where I want my drop. I know where I want my break. I'm very organized in that method. That's how my brain operates. How I organize my thoughts and how I organize my track is different than yours. The best way I can say for you guys is to organize yourselves with makes you feel comfortable. So how you arrange your track, I think that's where people get stuck, where you have all these great ideas, but then it's the arrangement piece that gets a lot of people hung up. Lay out your track, and that might help, even if it's on a piece of paper. Being like, oh, I want minute here, I want this. Minute 2, I want this. Sometimes that helps kind of break that block a little bit.
Yeah, totally agree. Like Orville said earlier, if you like give yourself a little bit of structure, a little bit of scaffolding, sometimes it can take away a lot of the scariness of a new idea. And I know a recommendation I give to a lot of my students is if you have a target genre that you're like dead set on sounding like, just drop that reference track at the top of your project and just use that to determine your arrangement. When should the first breakdown begin? When should the first buildup begin? How long do you leave the kick out? Just questions like that that don't impact a whole lot of the creative vision of a track, but rather just making sure that it sounds cohesive when put in a DJ set alongside the tracks that you're trying to sound like. Carmen, you just recently finished an album, so how do you go about starting a new track because you've been banging them out?
Thank you, bro. I have a pretty in-depth template that I start out with. So when I go into the studio, I open up a project, and there's already a bunch of drums, synthesizer, everything's ready mapped, ready to go. And I like to create, everyone's different. Some people will start like, oh, I'm starting an intro and start building that way. I like to create elements and just keep layering and layering until I have what sounds like the climax of a track. And then I'll be like, all right, here's the climax. Now let's build into this. Let's drop out of this. Let's end it, Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's like subtractive synthesis, right? It's
Exactly.
Like you start with the maximum amount of sound, and then you strip away the layers.
Right, and then through the process too, you might end up getting rid of stuff like I didn't like this, or I like the melody of this, but I don't like the sound of it. Let's change the sound or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So, like Michelle mentioned, production is a very personalized and individualistic way of creating music, especially with the infinite options that digital audio workstations provide. So, do you guys have any unconventional or unexpected routines or strategies when you get in the studio to make some music?
Depends on whose studio we're at.
Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff, maybe some things that might seem obvious to us, but maybe aren't obvious to other people, like getting a new synthesizer or trying a new plugin or trying getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. And if you can get into that experimentation, exploratory mindset, that sometimes helps me to come up with something. Almost anytime I get a new synth or I learn a new technique, let's try that. And then almost always immediately it turns into something new. So just mixing it up a little bit is the thing, but it might be obvious to some, but maybe not for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
To add on to what Orville just said, I found there's been times where I buy too many plugins at once or too many synthesizers at once, and then you kind of just overload yourself with trying to learn new gear, and you don't get anything done in the studio. So it's good to have new stuff, but just don't go overboard.
Yeah, the solution is not digital hoarding, right? There's a lot of people that see a free sample pack with 8,000 one-shots, and they're like, this is what I've been looking for.
Right, and then they're sitting there for 3 days trying to find a kick drum.
Yeah, you sort the entire thing out, and then you have no new music made,
Exactly.
I think arbitrary or creative limitations is another powerful thing. Just if you can come up with some kind of challenge for yourself in the studio, I'm going to make all the sounds just with this, or everything is going to be tied into some general theme. That helps me sometimes too, just to narrow down the options, because I have 1,000 plugins, millions of samples, and been collecting for over 20 plus years. So it's you have to come up with challenges to limit yourself. That's another thing that helps me too.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember hearing an anecdote about Fred again when he sat down with Swedish House Mafia. He put a 30-minute timer on the desk and he said, let's see if we can finish the track in 30 minutes. And they looked at him and said, we normally spend 30 minutes picking our kick out. So it can really help to impose some limits on yourself to make sure that you stay focused and move quickly. Michelle, what about you? Unconventional strategies?
Usually the less is more. I'll have a whole bunch of stuff, but then I'm just like, I'll get everything out, and then I'm just like, no, 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 no. And then I think I'm like, oh, I'll try this new, and then I end up going back right to my usual things that I have already set for myself because I know that's kind of comfortable, and I end up tweaking it. So you kind of stick with what you know, and that's why things kind of streamline a little bit faster. I do get new gear. I do like playing around with new techniques. Sometimes I've had... It's your fault, brother. Sometimes when I'm part of Change the Beat, which is it used to be called 23 by 23, and it pushes female producers in the industry where it started off only like 11% of producers in our industry are female. And it was supposed to be 23% by the year 2023. I think we're at about 17% right now, or about are female. And when you win some of the remix contests, you end up getting the entire Native Instrument contact suite. So I had ended up as one of the winners for 23 by 23, and I ended up getting that. It can be overwhelming. Because Native Instruments has a ton of amazing plugins to play around with, and especially if you have Machine, that is a whole other. But you also, some people get hung up because those things can get very intricate, and then just you can lose yourself in that, and then you don't get anything done. So again, it comes back to find your flow and find your way of organizing. So, and then the less is more. I get told a lot, if there's too many channels, that means you're kind of almost overthinking it again. So that's where if you overthink and hesitate, that means it's too much, in my opinion. But
For sure.
somebody else's may not be.
So one thing that's already come up multiple times is getting stuck, like getting lost in the sauce effectively. Like too many plugins, too many samples, too many options. So how do you guys structure, or how do you balance structure versus like creativity, spontaneity when you're producing? Like what do you do to help actually create tracks and results?
See, I find a lot of people that I've collaborated with or whatever, they'll get lost in, they'll create stuff and then they'll start trying to mix it down while we're in the middle of creating still. And I'm like, we're just wasting time here. Let's just keep the ideas flowing and, just keep adding elements. And like she was saying, less is more. And furthering on what I said earlier, that's kind of how I operate too. I'll just build and build and build, and then eventually go back and start taking stuff out to make it what exactly I want it,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that one way just is arbitrary deadlines too. That helps a lot with that, because you can spend an infinite amount of time on any track. The saying is like, no art is ever finished; it's only ever abandoned. And that can be for like one song, or designing a kick drum, or programming. It's like, so if you just my solution is to be less precious with it. Just get it as close as possible, and it's like, to a certain point, tweaking things too much really won't make the track better or different. Different isn't always better necessarily, too. And it's like, just like tweaking that one snare or just one sound a little bit, you might notice a difference, but is it actually going to make or break the track? Usually not. It's like, it's just something that you might notice. So I think learning to focus on the things that matter and getting it done is more important than the minutia sometimes.
Right. It's like the opposite of the meme where you spend 8 hours EQing your snare. It's like you just keep like minute changes that no one will ever notice, but when you're listening to it on loop in the studio for hours, you definitely notice. What about you, Michelle? How do you make sure the tracks get done?
I am actually one that also sets a timer for myself. Sometimes I've set like, I'll see what I can get done in like 2 hours. Sometimes I can get it done in 3 hours. This guy always gives me remixes to do. I always, if I get handed a remix, I always make sure I have 2 elements from whatever remix somebody hands me. And I give myself just 3, I give myself that time just so there's like no hesitation. And sometimes I have to walk away because I get too hung up on that. If I notice that I'm getting too hung up on EQing something, I walk away from it because that means I'm too much into it. I didn't used to be that way though. I used to get so stuck. It just over the years after you've been doing it enough. And I actually went back to, I have a music background. I actually went back to go take more classes in just music production just as I got back into, as I started to learn music production just to get a refresher. And I would suggest that. Even though I have my background in like music theory and things like that, it's still good. You're still a student, regardless if you've been producing. I mean, you saw. I mean, I've been producing since 2016. I'm like, okay, but I still take classes. I'm still learning. There's so much, so much out there, especially with a lot of the DAWs. Whenever Ableton makes an upgrade, there's always something that they always have like, oh, you can do this. Oh, you can do this. Oh, you can do this. There's so much out there that you can do with a lot of these plugins. Sometimes even taking one of their like mini courses helps. So.
Yeah, and on the topic of the software being increasingly more complex and there's always different things that you can do being patched in and updated, Orville, you are an Ableton certified trainer. You have a deep, deep technical knowledge. Like Carmen mentioned, a lot of the time we try to keep the ideation and the creation separate from the engineering. As someone that knows so much about the engineering and technical side, how do you prevent that from getting in your way when you're trying to create something?
I try to compartmentalize the processes as much as possible because, like I said, I usually don't worry too much about mixing and mastering until the full arrangement is there. If I hear something that's obviously like sounds funky or off, or I'll fix it right away. But I try to get the big picture in, and then I'll go back in a second kind of mixing engineer mindset to do the final mix down. And then after that, I switch over to a mastering engineer perspective. And some people like to try to write and sound design and mix and master all at the same time, starting in the middle. And a lot of producers can do that really well, but I have to separate just to kind of switch my hat that I'm wearing at that moment from trying to be creative to getting stuff done and then being technical. So it's some people, I think it helps us to treat those as separate processes when you're making music.
Yeah, that's smart. Sometimes maybe even like turning on like a lamp in your room to signify that you're now like the sound engineer or something.
I hate the mastering part. I'm always like
Changing your clothes real quick.
Yeah. Put on a suit or something. Invoice yourself.
I'm always hopeful that the label wants somebody that they're like, oh, is this unmastered? I'm like, yes. I'm like, are you guys gonna master it? They're like, yes. I'm like, okay, thank goodness, because I don't want to.
It's a totally different skill set, right? Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, like you guys said in your intros, we're very fortunate that you guys have all had incredibly long and prosperous careers. I mean, up to 2 decades, right? That's incredible. Chicago has seen a lot and heard a lot from all of you. If you were to go back to the very beginning and give yourself a little bit of advice, how would you steer yourself in a different direction?
Shut the fuck up. That's the only other advice I'd give to myself.
I tell her that all the time.
I'd say I'd probably just make more music than I did. I did do a lot of music, maybe focus more on music and less on parties a little bit. But I did a lot of parties, which was a lot of fun, but that doesn't last forever. So.
Yeah, I definitely would have started producing music sooner because I was DJing for probably 10 or 11 years before I even started producing. So that would be definitely advice I'd have for myself.
Yeah, on that topic, how do you guys see the relationship between being a DJ and like what some people consider to be like kind of the mandatory upgrade into a producer in today's like producer-centric industry?
So I'm actually glad I started DJing first because I learned the structure of music and that kind of helped me with my production. And nowadays you see these new producers sometimes and then they have a DJ set and they're playing their own and they don't know how to DJ. You know, so I'm very grateful that I started out the way. I just wish I would have started producing music sooner.
Right.
Same.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. You know, I think it's never, you know, it's never been easier to DJ or to make music now. So the barriers to entry are much lower. But it also, you know, but to really stand out, you have to be a really good DJ and a really good producer and a really good social media expert and a really good strategist. You know, like it makes certain things easier, I think, for everyone, but it also makes things harder too to stand out nowadays. So it kind of forces you to step your game up in all arenas if you're trying to be competitive with it. So
Yeah, that's a great point. And on that note, if somebody is, you know, has a full-time job and is trying to make progress in their journey as a music producer, maybe they only have 1 to 2 hours a day. What advice would you give them to like really make the most of that and like translate that into musical growth?
See, I operate a lot differently. Like my creativity, I can't put a time on. You know, I can't be like, oh, I'm going to work from this time to this time. It just doesn't work like that for me. So I guess my advice is if you have a full-time job or whatever, when you're getting ideas, just jot them down or talk them into a notebook or something so that when you do have that 2-hour time window, you have, you know, some other ideas that you were thinking about when you were creative. 'Cause
Right.
you might not be creative during that time
Like you
period.
file away a little bit of inspiration so you
Exactly.
can grab it later.
Right.
I think that collaborating with other people, it's another way to kind of hold yourself accountable. Like I work by myself. I'm terrible with committing to deadlines because I always push it off, even though I know I can do it. But if there's not like someone else that you're committing to, makes it easier. So if you can't if you don't have the discipline to say, all right, every morning before I go to work or every morning after work, I'm going to do is set a time to work with someone else. That way you're letting someone else down if you don't show up too. So that's one thing that could be helpful.
Definitely. A little bit of social pressure goes a long way.
I was going to say you're your own worst enemy because, you know, it's okay that, you know, after you're done working, it's okay to rest. That was, I think, one of the biggest things that I used to get hard on myself in is like, oh my gosh, I get home from work. I mean, I'm fortunate to have, you know, summers off and a lot of time off to be able to work on music and to DJ. But also there are times where, you know, I am exhausted where give yourself that grace because it's okay because if you force that creativity too, it's going to sound forced. It's going to not sound right. And I always give, especially if I've been DJing like every weekend, I do give I call it my Mondays off where I won't listen to music. I won't do any, anything related to music. I give myself that time off and that's okay. Your computer, your music is going to be there the next day. It's okay to have that creative time off because when you open that back up, you have a new fresh pair of eyes. And that also helps if you're stuck. When I'm stuck, I usually ask for a remix because sometimes I need something to kind of pull me out of that funk. And also it's nice to hear somebody else's take on something else, just to see how they're doing something to kind of pull me out. Or go cleanse your palate with a genre that you don't normally go to. I'm a classically trained violinist, so sometimes I will go to the symphony just to go hear something different, or I'll go to a different cleanse the palate to do something else. So it's okay to do that. It's okay to give yourself grace.
Very true. There's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves to, keep up with what we see on social media. I know it's an often repeated message, but that's everyone else's highlight reel, and you're looking and criticizing yourself on your lowest points. So it's important to give yourself some grace.
And how she just said we're our own worst enemy, this really isn't answering this question. It's touching on one of the previous questions, but we're our own worst critics too as artists. And you were asking earlier like how we get ourselves to finish projects. I've taught myself years ago that I have to tell myself that like my 80% is better than most people's 100%. And that gets me to that finish line. Otherwise, you'll sit there in your own head all day criticizing your work, and like he said, oh, let's work on this snare for another month. And is it really making the track better?
Yeah.
No.
Definitely not.
And also sometimes the track that you're like, are you sure? It's like, oh my God, if people love it, and the track that you sometimes love, people don't like it. That usually sometimes happens.
A lot of times they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great segue. How do you guys take in feedback and process feedback? Or like, what are your routines for sending out demos, not necessarily to labels, but just to collaborators or like trusted ears?
I was gonna say, I'll be honest, one of my biggest peeves, I mean, as much as I love friends and like people being like, oh my gosh, that's great, that's great, that's great. No. I really want you to give me constructive feedback on it. Like, hey, fix this. Or hey, this could be better, or maybe do this to this. I would rather have that kind of feedback and constructive feedback on how to correct something versus everything is great all the time. Because that's not how I want to improve.
Right. Fire emojis don't make your track better.
Right.
And further on what she just said, I will take feedback from like, let's say it's another producer or someone that I look up to or that I respect. But there's no artist on this planet or you like every one of their songs off every album. So I've kind of learned to just, I make music for myself. I'm not trying to appease anybody. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, it is what it is, you know? What matters at the end of the day is that was my happy zone, and I got to escape for a little bit and create. And
A true artist. I love it. That's good.
There's tips if you. I think feedback sometimes can be helpful and sometimes it can be counterproductive. Like especially like if you, first of all, it's how you present it to people. If I say like, "Oh, I'm working on this track. I'm not sure if it's really good. I don't know. Like, what do you think about this? Like, are you?" And if you present it like that, they're gonna. It's like if you go looking for trouble, you can find it anywhere. Like if you present, like if you're, and then someone might be like, "Well, I don't. I think that maybe you could change this." You know, like. But now if it's like, "Hey, I'm working on this. What are your thoughts?" Like that's a lot different way to frame it, and then people might like give you. Not to say that you're fishing for positive feedback only, but it could be a dangerous thing because, like I said, as Carmen mentioned, I don't like every single song by every single artist. Like, and everyone has their own subjective opinion on what is good and what sounds good, and we all have different ears and hear things differently too. So it's like, so just be careful with feedback. I'd say that. I don't do it a whole lot. If I do have something I recommend, this is what I do. I ask something very specific, like, is this kick drum too loud? Is the vocals too quiet? Like, don't be like, is this awesome? You know, like, or is this fucked up? Like, you know, like you want to be specific, and that way you'll get better.
At that point, you're not even asking about the artistic. You're asking about technical details.
Because the art is subjective, you know. And if you don't know if it's good or not, you probably should be rethinking the whole thing yourself. Like, is this even good? Do I even like this? Like, if you're not sure about that, maybe it's more on you than trying to get someone else's opinion on it to make it better for you. You know, if you don't even know if you like it. So.
Definitely. My friends and I have actually started explicitly saying like, hey, I'm looking for creative feedback, or hey, I'm looking for technical feedback. Or if you're done with the track, like you're sending it to labels already, maybe you say, hey, I'm not looking for feedback. Like I'm just sharing this with you.
Right, are you signing this or no? Like,
Yeah.
it's a yes or no question. I don't need a paragraph.
Well, if your heart's set on it, you're 100%, and then a friend thinks that you're looking for feedback and they go out of their way to like nitpick a lot of stuff, like that can hurt, man. Like, you know. We're all sensitive artists, right? Carmen, your music has ended up in so many different places, from chart topping on Beatport to, it said in your bio that you've had stuff licensed by Nintendo, which I want to hear more about,
Nintendo,
as well as
it was
CSI.
a Nintendo commercial.
Yeah, that's amazing. So
Jackass 3.5.
when you're setting out to make music, do you think about this wide range of places that it may end up, or are you truly just channeling a creative vision?
So with all of those, it was honestly a stroke of luck. I got an opportunity to join the sync licensing library. I didn't think anything of it. Got some results, and it was all music that I made 10 years prior, stuff that I was like, this sucks. Like, so then when I first started, like, it's not even in key, and like, but it is what it is. But like now, like with this new album, a couple of the songs, I'm like, these are meant for movies and video games, and like, because that's where the money's at. Is with
Sure.
safe places.
I appreciate you saying that. So does that influence how you are finishing the track? Like at any point you're like, I want the hook to be like especially catchy because I think this one has potential to be synced?
I'm just speaking, I guess, with the vibe of a couple of these tracks. I just made them very down-tempo-y and like almost new wave synthetic, like something that sounds like it's meant to be like a theme song or like in a video game.
Sure.
So,
I know which one you're talking about from listening to the album. Those are some hitters.
thank you.
All right, we got 10 minutes left on the box, by the way. If that's still getting around, the blocker box, John has it in the back. If you haven't yet, write down something that blocks your creative process, and one lucky submitter will be walking away with this beautiful pair of III headphones.
On the topic of sync and licensing and making music for placement, I've worked with a handful of music production companies that will get commissioned to make music for ads and stuff like that. And it's not my main thing, but every once in a while, an opportunity will come up and they're like, hey, we're working on this commercial for Jeep or for a car or for a liquor or something like that. And like, what do you have laying around that sounds like this? And that we need to send it by tonight. Like, so it's like, and so I never like trash any of I keep everything because there has been times where I've getting hit up for projects like that, and it's in like random beats or random, even stuff that's not dance music or just kind of stuff that I do just to experiment with, and sometimes like it actually fits what they're looking for. So never like delete anything.
Yeah, same thing. I got thousands and thousands of, it's insane.
The external hard drive is like bulging at the seams. But that's a great philosophy though, because I think that also encourages people to experiment more freely in the studio. And like maybe your dream is to release on a certain techno label, and you get halfway into an idea and you're like, they would never sign this. Like, don't ditch the idea, right? If you still think it has artistic merit, like see it through until you're done with it, and then maybe it'll be a sync licensing opportunity later
And
down
see,
the
I'm
line.
the type of person too. Like, I go into the studio, I can't even be like, I'm making a techno remix today. My brain, whatever happens. I could go in there and say I'm gonna make this, and it turns out completely opposite. And like you were saying, I don't trash it.
Yeah.
Keep it and go with it.
Yeah, it could have life later on.
Exactly.
Amazing. So, Michelle, I went through your Spotify preparing for this and counted 81 releases since 2016. I think a lot of people like to put prolific producer in their bios, but that's like actually insane. How do you
I don't know.
How do you write so much music?
I don't know. I just, since 2016, whatever comes to me. I think it's because I get it out. If it's in my head, I have to get it out. I don't, there are times where I'm like a hermit. I don't go anywhere. Sometimes I'll be home for days and just knock out. Sometimes it's like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tracks. Out of those, when I submit to labels, a friend of mine, Ara, Agent Orange, was like, always submit to your top like 5 that are like your dream kind of like labels that fit your tracks. You don't want to submit to labels that don't fit your music that you're trying to produce. You want to produce, I produce music that kind of coincides with what I'm playing. Earlier in my career, I was more housey, so of course I was producing more housey-esque type tracks. Now I'm playing more techno, so there's more techno kind of tracks. I will produce more minimal stuff, because I do play minimal. So it just depends, but you don't want to submit a track that doesn't fit the label, because you're going to get that rejection of, no, not for us. Well, of course it's not for us, because it's not the genre that they're looking for. So it just, sometimes I'm on a kick, but then sometimes I'll send releases and I'll have a ton of releases all at once, but then I go through where I don't want to look at Ableton for a month. So it depends. I will knock them out left and right, and then there are times where it's like, nope. But I like to have goals for myself to have at least between 10 to 15 releases a year. Like I like to have a release a month. So kind of coincides with the 80.
Yeah, it adds up. The math checks out. That's amazing. I mean, that's a lot of music out there in the world. So it's impressive that you're able to keep producing year round and
half of it for
meet that
him.
goal. I did notice that. You guys are always collaborating, which is awesome. So we started the conversation talking about how to start a project. I thought it would be poetic to end the conversation talking about how to know when a project's done. We talked about artificial deadlines as something that can be helpful to stop being a nitpicking perfectionist. But do you guys have any rules or just moments when you know this song's ready to ship?
Say when it passes the car test.
Yeah, to me, it's the car test and the live test. Like usually,
Yes. Car and live test.
yeah, stuff that sounds good in the laboratory environment, which is the studio. It doesn't always things you think sound perfect. It just don't all. It just almost never is exactly the same when you play it live. You hear it in a different way, and sometimes it's maybe something with the mix or the structure, but that's the car and then live. If it passes those, it's good to go.
Yeah, that was like
I mean,
the car test.
that's my answer too. Guys beat me to it.
All right, the almighty car test. That's really the law of the land, huh?
It really is. Yeah. And thank God that now cars have Bluetooth and aux cords, because back in the day, you'd be 100 CDs going back and forth. Oh, let me turn the kick down a decibel. Oh, no, now the clap needs some more delay on it. And you waste a whole pack of CDs.
Honestly, having that friction would cause me to be far less of a perfectionist. It's like, man, I'm done burning this demo to a CD. Is there anything as far as like emerging music technology? Obviously, we have this whole AI side of things that we can or cannot jump into, up to y'all. But like, is there anything as far as music technology that's providing a lot of inspiration in the studio right now, or any new toys or pieces of software that have excited you guys?
I'm pretty excited with a lot of the AI stuff. I think that's like, it's, to me, I've been using it or starting to use it, or I plan on using it more as like a replacement for sample libraries like Splice and stuff like that. You can use it to make vocals or percussion loops or weird experimental sounds that don't exist anywhere. You can synthesize, you can make all that stuff yourself too, but it's still fun to play with samples sometimes. And when you pull stuff from Splice or Loop Cloud, all the best samples have been used thousands of times, and you start to hear it all over Beatport and Spotify, the same stuff that everyone else uses. But when you're kind of sample farming using AI generative tools, it gives it a little bit more uniqueness, maybe, that might set you apart from than just pulling something off of Splice. So I'm pretty excited for that use case for it.
I'd say, as far as inspiration for me, I like to surround myself with a lot of artists and people I collaborate with, like guitarists and vocalists, and I draw inspiration from them. We just create together. Like, I'll be DJing, he'll be painting, and then my vocalist will stop by, and then we'll be in the studio, and then we'll just be bouncing around. Even I'm DJing, my boy will plug in his guitar, and then we'll be like, oh, that's sick. Let's go in the studio and throw that over a beat. And so
That's awesome. I feel like you have such a like pure artistic expression, like your process, you know? It's like, I make what I make, I hang out with creatives, like, we'll just see what happens. It's beautiful.
thank you.
Same for me. People that I hang around with, and just everybody has their own like kind of unique just music style, and just kind of like that essence of that. I mean, using AI as a tool, I like using it just to kind of almost like bounce ideas off of. I've learned that you can ask it just kind of like what tweak of a frequency, and it'll suggest certain types of frequency that like, oh, you can tweak it to this, and it's just, I use it more for that kind of like more of a technical kind of side, versus like use it for vocals and things like that. Like I've used it just to like break down like how would you use this type of plugin. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, you can use it this way. Sometimes it suggests that.
Yeah, it can be quite prescriptive.
You can just like, that's what I just like bought a new synth and you can just drop the whole PDF into Chat GPT
Yeah.
and then ask Chat GPT a question like, hey, how do I modulate this?
Yep.
The D-tune of oscillator 2 on this, and like, it'll
So
tell
much
you in a
easier.
second. So that I've been using it a lot for that too.
This whole conversation right here has me feeling like I'm in the Stone Age because you guys are speaking Chinese to me right now. But I'm gonna have to go home and research what you guys are talking about now.
It's a quick summary.
Step up my game. Jump into 2025.
Instead of reading
here.
the manual, it's just like you can put that PDF and being like, oh, how do you do this? And it's just like, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
All right, the blocker box has arrived. So these are not the winners. These are just ones that we're going to read, and then we'll do the winner at the very end. So we talked about like digital hoarding before. You know, every Instagram ad plugin is trying to convince you that that's the missing piece of the puzzle. This question is, music can be very expensive. What is an investment that is actually crucial for production?
Training. Maybe I'm biased because I'm a trainer, but I think I've said, I'm not trying to sell classes or anything like that, but because I've literally worked with hundreds of maybe thousands of students since like I've been teaching since 2008, and the difference of I think getting some guidance can really expedite the process, you know. So
I agree with that, especially early.
Same. Learn. I mean, I'm still learning. So, and I mean, I've asked Orville questions. I even asked others. So you learn from each other. It's okay to ask questions and ask for help.
And I'd say, yeah, you could totally get lost, like you were saying with the Spotify ads, and oh, now I need this and I need this. But just find something that works for you and stick to that and learn it well. I mean, any synthesizer, if you learn it well enough, you can make any sound with it. So it's about what works for you and sticking to it.
And that also goes for DAWs, because some people are very comfortable with Ableton, and some people are okay with, you know,
Reason or Pro Tools
Pro
or-
Tools, like that. Like Reason's
Logic.
great for certain instruments. Like I love Reason for certain things. Pro also, some people love it for how intricate Pro can get, but it also drives me nuts. So, but it just depends on what you're
'Cause
comfortable with.
It's horrible with MIDI, and that's
Right.
basically what we're working with in electronic music. So it's more for like recording live drums and live guitar.
Awesome. So this question comes from Haji. How to finish tracks when you feel like you don't have all the elements? It doesn't sound full. Maybe you're referencing against something and it just doesn't have the same shine to it.
Ask somebody. No, I mean, but serious. Let's just ask. I mean,
Maybe at that point, maybe start adding some chopping up loops or something to add over it. Start saying, you know, because sometimes in my beginning, I think I'd feel like my drums weren't full enough, and then I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna add some drum loops to it to make it more full, because I was trying to create all my drums, sequencing them myself. So
I think if you're comparing your tracks to, so like if you played it against a reference, you say, all right, mine sounds empty. What the solution is to just deconstruct what's actually going on in the reference. Is it one bass layer? How big is the kick? How complex or how simple is the percussion? Like if you can break down the core ingredients of it and then you compare that to what you have, it should be obvious to see like what they have that you don't. And sometimes it's too much too. A lot of people think that it sounds empty, but sometimes things will be clashing with each other, which actually cancels elements out in some ways too. So.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, this is like the studying of existing tracks that can be so helpful.
And that brings us back to what I was saying too. You're a lot of times you're your own worst critic. You know, maybe it sounds awesome, and you're just being hard on yourself.
That's true. That's true. It's also helpful sometimes to like, if you really are going for a target sound, maybe you set a low pass filter at like 100 and you like really listen to the sub and like, you know, where are the points of impact? How do they create a groove? Set a high pass filter to like 5K. What is the programming like? You know, how busy is it? What amount of swing is there? I know that's something that can like go a long way when you're trying to learn why a certain genre feels a certain way. All right. I can't read the name, but the question is, I'm spreading myself too thin and my head is in too many places. What recommendations would you give to someone that is trying to sit down to produce and just can't channel that creativity?
take a break. It's okay.
I'd say focus on one thing at a time, like just the drums, then just the bass, then just the other. Yeah. If you try to do everything all at once, it can be very overwhelming, and you'll run into analysis paralysis.
There's no creativity anymore.
For sure. And I think it can also help to like try to disconnect. Like I leave my phone in the other room when I'm really trying to lock in, and just reduce the distractions available to you. Maybe even turn the Wi-Fi off on your computer, as long as iLock doesn't get in your way. All right. This person struggles to find new, diverse, and creative ways to, oh, it's actually a DJ question, transition tracks when they're mixing. We'll take it anyway.
I've always been a fan of really long blends. I'd say just try to be creative and have vocals drop when new vocals kick in, and bass line switching at the exact same time, and create two songs out of that, or one song out of those two songs.
Compliment this, the transition, or just know your track. Know your tracks. You
definitely have to know your tracks. Right.
And know how they're going to sound, and just that
Sometimes
blend.
the track will go off by 4 beats or something,
Right.
and then it throws off your whole phrasing.
Mm-hmm.
So then you got to throw a 4-beat loop on another one to have it catch up with that one.
Pro level.
And sometimes you also have to realize there's also producers out there that like to change tempo in the middle of their track. So
Yeah, you
Gotta be
gotta put a note on those.
That's always fun.
it's always
Like, what's happening here? Is it, the
Why is
turntable
this-
just turn off?
Why is it speeding up?
Slowing down? Right.
I didn't think I was this bad at beat matching.
Right now.
Awesome. Matthew Dorr struggles keeping an idea fresh in their head once they get into the weeds of selecting stems. And I'll add on to that with, I feel like a lot of new producers are like very, very stem centric when they're getting started. A lot of people, the first thing they invest in is maybe a Splice membership or something like that. So they're going from pre-made loops that may be quite busy or have effects baked into them and stuff. So what advice would you give to someone that is starting from that and get them to a point where they're able to like take an idea and actually turn it into a project?
So turning, just creating their own loops versus starting with samples.
Mm-hmm.
I think like having a basic foundation of music theory makes that process go a lot easier. Like just through trial and error and experimentation, you can get crazy, interesting, weird results, but that can take a lot of time if you don't know which notes to program or what knobs to turn when it comes to sound design and music theory. So just getting like and if you're depending on the type of music you're trying to make it do, if you want it to be quote unquote musical, just having a core understanding of chords, scales, keys makes it easier to start with notes, and then just a basic foundation of sound design too can help you make your own sounds that work with those notes.
Definitely. And you can deconstruct loops and learn a lot about them. Like, let's say you're into like UK garage, like, and the loop sounds great, and you try to make it, and it doesn't sound the same. Like, literally look on the waveform and like look where the drums are hitting, and then all of a sudden you have this big lesson on like what swing does to a groove, and you're like, oh, that's why it doesn't sound the same. It's like my third 16th note was like so far off or whatever. But, sweet. All right, this is I like this one. How do you make connections as an introvert to collaborate with other musicians? Does anyone here self-describe as an introvert? Well, let's hear from you, Michelle.
I don't. It's difficult in the sense that, like, I mean, force the introvert out. The first thing is, well, I work a lot through email or text, but share the same kind of I don't want to say genre interest, but also just being able to work together and just be respectful of each other, to know that it's okay to be quiet and just to collab on something that may not be rushed. And it's take your time with the person and be patient with the person. Both are very intricate, and maybe you're just going to be really quiet about it. I have a hard time coming out of certain things, so it's...
That's good advice, though, about the email, because even though I don't consider myself an introvert, I'm more of an extroverted introvert.
Yep.
But I find that I communicate a lot better through instead of face to face, like through actual writing it down and
Right.
an email or a text or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of collaborations, even at the pro level, are done via email these days, right? Like you just send stems back and forth, and that makes it a lot easier.
Exactly.
You don't have to spend like 8 hours like drinking coffee with somebody to like bang out a track these days, which is nice. All right, we are out of time, but can I get a huge round of applause for the panelists today?